Good afternoon and welcome to The Kitchen Life. I'm so happy to be coming to you live today. The Kitchen Life is all about fewer ingredients, simple recipes, surefire techniques, and passionate cooking. And we've got a special host today. ProduceMadeSimple.ca has brought us some incredibly exciting ingredients. So today is all about Christmas baking. Now, when you're baking for Christmas, I know you've probably got shortbread cookies and maybe a Christmas pudding, or maybe one of your aunt or your grandma's favorite recipes. What I've got for you today is a couple things that you can either serve before or after Christmas, Christmas Day, but this coffee cake. So I'm using fresh raspberries. Now it's a lemon and raspberry coffee cake or a ricotta cake. So ricotta makes it nice and rich, and it's a perfect cake to have around if somebody drops by and you want to have some coffee. Now listen, the cool thing about these live streams is they are interactive. So wherever you're watching this, I want to hear from you. If you have any questions as we go through any of these techniques, it's important for me to hear from you because I want to share with you all of my experience and frankly, I've made enough mistakes to get it right now just a few times. So the other recipe that we've got is custard based. So we have one that's cake based and one that's custard based. Now this custard, we're going to use caramelized figs. Now figs are bright in flavor. They're very, very rich. They're perfect to eat raw. But what I'm going to do with them today is saute them and caramelize them just slightly. So let's get started with some of these recipes. Now the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through a creme anglaise. Now a custard based or creme anglaise is the base for ice cream and the base for creme brulee, creme reverse caramel, and many dessert favorites. If you learn this recipe, it'll be one that you use time and again. So the very first thing I'm going to do is start with the cream. Now I want to get this warmed up. So I've got whipping cream, and I'm going to pour 750 mils into my pan. I've got a nice large pan. I've got some other ingredients to go in. Heavy bottom saucepan is always best. And I'm just going to turn that on medium heat. So I've got it on medium. Really important to just bring this up to temperature. The reason I'm heating the cream is because I'm going to be using eggs. And if I just put hot cream into cold eggs, what I'm going to get is scrambled eggs. What I want is I want to temper those eggs so I get the rich and creamy texture without making scrambled eggs. Now, I had the absolute privilege. What I want to do is I want to give you a little picture of what I'm looking at. I'm totally inspired here today. So we're at my family farm here. Have a look outside. I'm just going to take and show you outside here. I've got this. It's almost a blizzard. It goes between the nice light snow and a blizzard today. It's beautiful out there. And I'm looking out there and I'm having a look at my barn, thinking about the chickens that I will be having. Now I've got some friends that are hooking me up with some chickens. I'm going to have farm fresh eggs, but I was kind enough, my neighbors were kind enough to bring me some farm fresh eggs. So the very first thing I want to show you how to do is to separate the eggs. For those of you who are more experienced cooks, you might think, well, I know how to do that. But keep in mind, I want this for every viewer. So if you've never separated eggs before, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Best to tap the eggs on a flat surface. I find they crack a little bit better then. And I'm just going to use the egg shell to separate that. Now what I want is I want just the yolks. And what just the yolks are going to give me is a beautiful, rich, creamy consistency. Most of the fat is contained, if not all the fat is contained in those yolks. And are you looking at the color of those beautiful farm fresh yolks? This is why I'm so excited to get my own chickens so that I can literally walk out there every day and just get some farm fresh eggs. Now, you'll notice I'm separating it, but I'm not going to make waste of the whites. I can store those in the refrigerator for a couple of days. Look at that, my eggshell broke. This is actually a really good technique. This is one that my wife uses all the time. You can literally sift it out using your fingers. I'm going to keep these egg whites for at least a couple days if I choose to in the refrigerator, but they're going to make a great omelet, or you know, if you're feeling so inclined, you can make yourself a pavlova, another amazing holiday type of dessert. So with those separated, and with my cream beginning to heat up, I'm just going to rinse my hands here real quick. Eggs separated. I'm going to take those whites and I'm going to put those right in the refrigerator. I want to make sure so that they're food safe that I keep them refrigerated. And look at the beautiful color of those yolks. I just love that. Now, I need sugar, and for this recipe, I need a half cup of white sugar. So this is a granular sugar, and it is, common. Everybody's got this at home. So half cup of sugar, and then I'm going to put those egg yolks directly into the stand mixer. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can, of course, do this by hand, but you want to make sure to use a balloon whisk. So if you're doing it by hand, you use a whisk, and if you're using the stand mixer, you want to use your balloon whisk. I'm going to put that on the stand mixer. And this is one of those steps with creme anglaise that you don't want to rush. You want to make sure that the consistency is like ribbons. So as I begin to mix this, I'll show you in just a moment what it turns into. So I'm going to start slow, and I'm going to turn that right up. Now into my cream, as it begins to heat, I've got some pure vanilla extract. So you can use a vanilla bean, and the recipe that we're providing today will show you how to use either one. I want to use pure vanilla extract because it's more common. You're more likely to have it at home. So I'm just going to put a little tablespoon in. Of course, vanilla acts like a beautiful flavoring agent. It makes everything that is sweet taste just that much better. And then I've got a little bit of brandy. So you can use a cognac, a brandy, or a dark rum. If you want to keep this, alcohol-free, this is just an option. But I love the flavor. The thing about cognac or brandy is that the maker has gone into such detail, crafting it. There's so much incredible flavor in it. And, the one thing as a professional chef you're always looking for is opportunities to make good food great. And you do that by elevating each step with a great ingredient. So I'm going to turn that on high now. And what's happening is this cream is not only heating up, but it's also infusing both the brandy or cognac and that vanilla. So we'll just give that a little bit of a whisk. And as that, you can see it's already cut. There's already a steam forming. So I'm going to turn that down. That's warmed up now. And let's see if we can get a close-up here of this. I don't know, can we get inside that? Can we get inside that just to show that developing? I don't know if you can or not. If you can, then that would be just awesome. What do you think? Can we see that? I'm going to stop it here just for a second, just so you can see the consistency as it develops. It's getting very close, but you see how that begins to turn blonde in color. So I'm going to continue to mix that, but I'll show you the consistency. You want to make sure that that develops. It's adding air, it's combining those ingredients, but it's changing the texture. And flavor is important, but what is equally as important is texture. So the texture of this, we want it to be voluptuous, we want it to be full flavored, we want it to be nice and clean on the palate. So again, if you're just joining us, let's have a look at this incredible finished product here. This is the lemon raspberry ricotta cake. So we'll be starting that in just a minute. Now, this is a beautiful and light cake. Oh, look, there we go. I think we got the right consistency here. So let's have a look at this. And I want to show you what I mean by ribbons. So I'll just take off the whisk. And then let's have a look here. This is what I mean. See how that's ribboning? So that ribbon consistency will make certain that this is a beautiful recipe. So I want to keep every last little bit of that I can. So just tap that off, set that aside. And now what I've got to do is I have to temper those eggs. And the way that I do that is with a whisk. So I start the creme anglaise with the whisk, and this is something you can do on your own, or if you have, if you're a little bit concerned about this, have somebody hold the bowl for you. But this is something that is easy to do, and all you do is just start by pouring a little bit of this cream mixture in, and notice I'm whisking as I go. So whisking as I go means I'm going to incorporate that fully into the mixture. And as I do, I'm bringing the temperature of those eggs up evenly. And it's allowing me to use raw eggs without scrambling them. So that's enough. I've got enough in there now. I'm just going to make sure I clean up the bowl. I want every last little bit of that in. And this is what it should look like. Let me bring that ahead for you. This is what the consistency you're looking for. So it's all completely incorporated. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to switch from the whisk to a wooden spoon. So a wooden spoon is really important because I'm just going to work with this a little bit. I'm going to turn this on simmer. So I've got that cream mixture, a little bit that's left, on low. I'm just pouring this in, and as I do, I'm just going to use a figure-8 motion. Nice thing about that figure-8 motion is it moves the entire mixture all around. Now that is creamy and it's rich. Man, it looks nice already. So what I'm smelling here is I'm getting the vanilla. Of course, cream-based or custard-based desserts are very rich in flavor. So the nice complement to this, though, is going to be those sweet and caramelized figs. Now, figs, if you don't know, here's a great point. Figs are actually an inverted bloom. So you think, I'm eating a fruit. Well, technically you are, but technically this is an inverted blossom. So I don't think I've ever had flavors that taste better than inverted blossoms. Figs, whether they're fresh or cooked, they're an ingredient that in human history have been used since like thousands of years BC, before Christ, BC. This is something that you're going to enjoy, whether it's fresh or cooked. And in this case, gives you a chance to have something that, in my opinion, is maybe a little more exotic, maybe a lesser used ingredient. And around the holidays, figs are perfect. So if I was going to use this raw, what I would do is I would use this with a charcuterie board. So around our house this time of year, we always have meats and cheeses, fresh fruit. I wouldn't have one without fresh figs. The way I serve it is just sliced in half, and it's a beautiful, beautiful ingredient. Remember, wherever you're watching this, this is a live broadcast. If you have any questions about anything we're talking about, I'd love to hear from you. Let's have a look at this consistency now. You can see I've only been on it maybe for 60 seconds while we're chatting here. You can see that it's creamy, it's rich. I'm just going to tip that towards you so you can see it. And look at the color. Now that color is really made dramatic because of those farm fresh eggs. If you've got eggs bought at the store, of course, that's fine. But the one thing you're guaranteed with farm fresh eggs is you've always got that much, much darker yolk. So I'm just going to let that sit, and that will actually cool. Now, the next thing we're going to start with is off here. I'm just going to set this up to just cool a little bit, or a trivet for that, just to make sure that, you know, it's also a beautiful thing to use almost as a dessert gravy. So what I've got in the ProduceMadeSimple.ca, and that's where I'll have these ingredients and recipes will be there for you today. So if you've got a hankering for this, you can make this today. Simple recipes, some fresh, you know, I've got Meyer lemons, and I've got these beautiful fresh raspberries. If you can find these at your local grocer, they're readily available. You can make this today. So let's go to the figs. This is one of my favorite ingredients, because they're just so simple to use. And there's no need to do anything to them ahead of time. As a matter of fact, I don't even remove the stems. The stems, when they cook down, are really beautiful. You can, if you're eating them raw, you can just take a bite and toss the stem. But in this case, I want to keep the stems on. And let's have a look at this. I want to show you how beautiful those insides are. So that is the inside of a beautiful fig. Isn't that gorgeous? And literally all I'm doing, so as I slice it, I can immediately smell, it smells so good, and literally I just want to, if I wasn't chatting with you, I'd pop one of these in my mouth. They are delicious. So you can see as I slice them, what I'm doing is I'm passing right through that stem. It gives it a beautiful profile. I love that profile. It's always nice when you're cooking with ingredients like this to show people what you've done. It especially lets me know that this isn't store-bought, that you've taken the time to make this yourself. What I'm going to do is I'll turn this, I've got a non-stick saute pan, and I'm just going to, again, put this on medium-high. I've got some butter. And I'll just use a little bit of butter, just a little spot of butter. And when that melts, I'll know the pan is ready. Of course, if the pan is too hot, I always use heavy bottom, good quality pans. It's one of the biggest frustrations when you get in the kitchen. Using good equipment can make a great recipe even better, but I'm telling you, bad equipment or poor equipment makes it difficult, and it'll have you frustrated every single time. Quality heavy bottoms willing pan. This pan is one of my favorites. So I'm just melting the butter there, and I'm going to continue slicing these. Again, the only prep with the fresh figs is always just see how absolutely beautiful they look. Perfect. So the nice thing about both of these recipes today is that they are simple. They're simple because there's fewer ingredients, and that's a big part of the kitchen life, is we want to use is going to be better. As a matter of fact, in my experience, a whole bunch of recipes often hides, really poor recipes. So a really great recipe will elevate a featured product, and you'll know it. Like literally, these are going to be carried on that beautiful custard, and it's going to be just beautifully flavored. So what I want is I want that butter to be bubbling, and I want it to be slightly fragrant. Remember, when you're cooking, use your eyes always, obviously, but think about what you're smelling. So what I'm smelling right now is that butter is just beginning to heat up. It's beginning to get a little bit fragrant, and that's the perfect time to add some sugar. So just a little bit of sugar. I don't need much. I'm going to have all kinds of natural sweetness coming from those figs, but what I want is I want a slight caramel to develop on top. And this is something that you once you put it on here, you don't really want to walk away and, take a phone call or change the laundry. You want to make sure you kind of stay with this. You can see that I can easily handle these, putting them in the pan. I'm going to make sure not to overcrowd that pan. I'm going to leave a few of these figs fresh for garnish. You can see how beautiful that looks already. And the technique that is really important for me to share with you today is when I'm baking this custard is that of a bain-marie or water bath. Now this is something that is simple to do and a technique that you'll use time and again. If you've never done it before, let me tell you something. Today is going to be a great day for you, because if you've ever had trouble with delicate things burning in the oven, what the bain-marie does, and let me grab the pan. What the bain-marie does is it allows you to cook in a humid environment that is temperate. So it's tempered by the water. And I'm just going to take, I've got my kettle. I'm just going to take and boil some water. And the reason I do that is when I put it into the oven, I want to make sure that the water that I pour in doesn't cool everything down and affect my cooking time. I want my cooking time to remain the same. Therefore, I'm going to put warm water in. What happens in that humid environment is it keeps this custard perfectly humid. You're not going to get it burning. It's not going to be overcooked. And so the bain-marie is a technique I want you to learn. I want you to try it here, and I think you're going to, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say it's a great technique. So the final step in this creme anglaise is to just simply sieve it. Now I've got a fine chinois or a fine sieve. This is like a china cap. This is one you'll see in a professional kitchen. You don't need one that's shaped like this. You can get a very inexpensive one at a local grocer or a local kitchen supply store. But the fine sieve is great. You'll need it anyway. You need it for gravy this holiday season. So what I'm going to do is literally pour this through, and anything that is a poor consistency will just be caught up in that fine sieve. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that is just beautiful. I'm going to hurry because I can smell now. See, I was talking to you about what happens and what you can do when you smell things in the kitchen. I can smell this caramelizing. Let's have a look at these. We'll see how we're doing here. Let's have a look here. Oh yeah, these are ready. So the nice thing about using a heavy bottom pan, and this is one thing I have to emphasize to you, is that when you use a heavy bottom pan, when your dish gets close to being finished, you can turn it off and it will continue to cook to finish. It really helps to prevent burning, and that's why I love it so much. So let's put these in. I've got my bain-marie prepared, and let's just put some of these beauties in. So I want to scoop up some of that. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. I wish you could smell this. It smells absolutely fantastic. So you can see how beautiful that looks already. Can you imagine what it will taste like when we put it in the oven, bake it in this beautiful custard? Now, if you're not familiar with custard, a custard is really just like a pudding. It's an English style of pudding, hence the name creme anglaise. And what it does is it literally, oh boy, we got one turned over, there we go. What it does is it literally, you can see how I'm doing this here. I'm literally just using a spoon, turning them over, and the reason I'm turning them on their top, I want to see that sliced side so that when my guests try it, they can see that beautiful, remember, it's an inverted bloom, they can see that beautiful inverted bloom and know, my goodness, I'm really eating something kind of exotic, something quite beautiful. So I arrange them in the bottom of the pan first, and then this is the exciting part. Here comes the creme anglaise. And what I can do is I take a ladle, and I'm just going to pour that right over top. Look at this. Oh my gosh. So beautiful. I want to fill that dish to about halfway. There we go. Oh man, it smells so good. Honestly, this is something, in my opinion, it's inexpensive, easy to prepare. This is something that could kind of become a classic for you. It's something that can become one of your family or friends' favorites that you make every single year. Now, with my oven preheated, I've got it on at 350. This is the key. I'm going to take and pour that hot water. Now, be careful. I'm going to take and pour that hot water in about halfway up the pan. If you feel more confident in a taller pan, you can put it in a taller pan. Don't hesitate to do that. Then I've got aluminum foil, and the most important thing when you're putting this on is just to make certain that you do cover it completely. I'm going to turn this around a little bit. And what we want to do is just tuck that in right around, and I want to create a pocket there. I want to make sure that not all that water escapes. Of course, it's going to bake for about 50 to 60 minutes. So I want to make absolutely certain that it can, that I don't lose all the water from evaporation. There we go. Tuck that in. Now that can go straight into the oven, again, 350 degrees. Make sure to preheat the oven. It takes some time to preheat the oven. So I've preheated the oven. Now, when you begin this process, go ahead and preheat the oven because it'll probably be ready about the time this is ready to go in. I'm going to pop this in, and then we're going to start on our next dish. Perfect. So that is our caramelized mission fig custard. That is going to be beautifully rich. That, after you bake it, will hold in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 days, no problem, and be a great consistency. So, a little heads up. Let's say you want to make this for a Christmas Eve party. This is a great thing to do maybe a day ahead. Get some of the work done ahead of time. Doesn't take up a lot of refrigerator space, and the dishes for a shallow dish is relatively inexpensive and can be purchased just about anywhere. So now let's start with this next recipe. I'm very excited about this recipe. I love this recipe. I'm just going to grab another bowl here. There we go. Good to have an extra bowl on hand. And we're going to use some of the same principles I initially did when we started the creme anglaise. I want to start, first of all, by putting in my eggs. So I'm going to put in 3 eggs. And you'll notice I always do this. So although with a cake method, you do have to put dry ingredients and wet ingredients in separately. The first step for me is always to, what the French technique is to blanchir. I want to blanchir the sugar and the eggs, and that will change the texture every single time. So sugar in, and you'll always notice I've got my recipes handy because in the kitchen life, we're always testing and improving recipes, making certain that every single element is just right. So I'm just going to double check my recipes here, make sure that I've got everything in just right. And it's for this particular recipe, I've got 1 cup of sugar going in. So again, just common white granular sugar. And 3 eggs. You're going to love this recipe. Let's have a quick pan down at that recipe while we can there, because it is gorgeous. And I'm just going to put my whisk back in. Of course, that just had egg and cream on it. Have a look at that recipe. That's beautiful, a beautiful use of raspberries. Now, raspberries are available year-round. Raspberries are the kind of thing, they're actually part of the rose family. A little-known fact, but they really pack a ton of flavor. They're extremely healthy. They're good cooked and also good raw, so they're always good to have around. If you're just joining us by chance, just a reminder that send me a question. If you have any questions, it can be related to what I'm preparing today, or it can be completely unrelated as well. So I'm going to put that on high. If you don't have a stand mixer, again, you can do this using a balloon whisk. The larger the whisk, the easier it will be. I'm adding air to this, and I'm combining the ingredients. But what I'm looking for is that consistency that is ribbon-like. And for you, what I want to show you the dry ingredients. So this is also very important. I'm going to use a whisk to bring together these ingredients. So what I have is baking powder, and it's 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And I've already got all-purpose flour inside the bowl. So we're going to use 1 tablespoon. Now, keep in mind the baking powder is the thing that activates this beautiful cake. It's the thing that makes it rise. We're going to bake this at, if you've got a convection oven, we're going to bake it at 325 degrees. And if you've got a conventional oven that's just radiant without a fan, we're going to bake it at 350. Those convection ovens are a little bit warmer. They cook, well, not warmer, sorry. They cook faster than a regular radiant oven without a fan. So I'm just going to put a pinch of salt. So in this, again, all-purpose flour, baking powder, and a little pinch of salt. The reason that I put salt in it is just like the vanilla aids, the salt also aids. So salt reveals flavors, levels of flavor. With that fully combined, I've got my dry ingredients finished, and oh my gosh, this looks so nice. I can't wait to show you this. So this is a really clear indication of the difference between those farm fresh eggs and commercially produced eggs, but you get the same beautiful results. This is the ribbon-like consistency I'm looking for. So it's about texture as much as it is about flavor. Now I'm going to leave that balloon whisk on, but just before I do, I want to talk to you a bit about lemon zest. So these are beautiful and fragrant Meyer lemons. Now Meyer lemons are, to me, they're almost like a combination, the juice is like a combination of lemon, orange, and grapefruit. It's both sweet and tart. But what I want from it is the zest. Now the zest is just that lining on the outside. Just below the zest is the pith. Now the pith is very bitter, but in the zest you have the oil. Now that oil is what I'm after because it's going to add flavor directly into the heart of this. I'm going to put this in, and you can see this is an important technique. I'm just making one clean pass, and then as I do, I'm just turning that lemon in my hand, allowing me to make a pass, take off the zest, and leave that bitter pith. Now, this lemon, now I'll just move this up here so you can have a quick look. Have a look inside. You can see that zest inside there. And this lemon is still good, obviously, for the juice. So I'll set that aside and use it for a juice application. Nothing wrong with that. It'll store in the refrigerator with no problem at all. So now I've got a little bit, I want to add some butter. Now I've got just some melted butter, and I'll put that in. It's one stick of butter. Butter in this case is going to add flavor. It'll add richness. It'll add some really pleasant fat. But more than anything, it's just going to add flavor. Now, this is that kind of, for this recipe, kind of the secret ingredient. And ricotta, if you're not familiar with it, is, let's just say it's a little bit like a cross between cottage cheese and cream cheese. It's very rich. It's a beautiful dairy. And for me, I love the texture, again, the texture that this brings. So I'm going to put this in. So you notice I've got, now that I've developed that sugar and egg mixture, all of my wet ingredients have gone into one single pan. And that's important because of this. If you've ever had a cake fail in its ability to rise, or maybe it's a little inconsistent, what happens is, if you put all the ingredients without doing wet and dry separate, the baking powder will be distributed unevenly. And you may get pockets of baking powder, you'll get uneven cooking, and there's nothing like doing it this way. So now, again, for texture, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put this on. And before I put those dry ingredients in, I'm going to reattach this and bring this mixture together. About set on medium, and that's away. So we've been going now, we've only about 35 minutes into the broadcast. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we've already got well underway 2 really beautiful Christmas recipes. So these are simple recipes. You notice the ingredients that I have. They are not complex ingredients. It makes it readily available so you can make these at home without any trouble. If you're just new to baking, this is a great way to start baking. Dry ingredients there. And I'm just going to prep my, my bowl. So I've got a ceramic baking dish. Now you could use a cast iron baking dish. You can use a glass baking dish. But most important, to just make sure to have a dish that's buttered. So you can take, you can obviously use a brush. I like the simplicity. I can also feel where that butter is just by using my hand. And I'm just going to go around the dish. And then on the bottom, I want to make sure that it's completely coated. And that will make sure that when it comes time to either unmold or serve this beautiful cake, that I've got nothing sticking. So with that buttered, I'm going to use just a little bit of flour. And I'll show you another technique. So you literally put, now this looks pretty good here. I'm going to turn that up. Beautiful. That's fully incorporated. And I'm just going to put some flour in. You can just dump the flour in. And then I'm going to shake it around. And as I do, it coats the bottom. And it gives me a layer of flour that nothing will stick to. Perfect. Then the excess flour, I'll just dump that out because I don't want a pocket of flour. Take a quick drink. I hope you're enjoying today. Wherever you're watching, I want to direct you to the Produce Made Simple website. So I'm going to show you, this is where a number of my recipes are, where these will be available. Having a look at it now, you can see how easy it is to use. Beautiful photography. There's also a great search engine. So if you have a fruit or vegetable that you want to use, this is the perfect place to go to plug it in, and you can find what you need to get back into the kitchen life. Perfect. So ProduceMadeSimple.ca, it is the most important thing to me is that it brings together the very best ingredients. And for really good recipes, it's tough when you're using poor ingredients. So when you have good recipes and you have great ingredients, that's going to mean incredible flavor. So now with my mixer on slow, I'm just going to begin to add the dry ingredients in. So dry ingredients in. So this is just my flour, and I'm just putting this in. And as I do, it's beginning to incorporate evenly. And that's what will guarantee a great batter that's fully consistent. Man, it looks good. Beautiful. Great consistency, beautiful color, and again, just a few ingredients. So what the lemon does is the lemon really goes nice with raspberry. Raspberry is sweet, and of course the lemon is slightly tart. And what that does is that really appeals to your whole palate. So when you end up baking and serving this, what you have is you have a well-balanced recipe, something that is both savory and slightly sweet. And look at that finish. That is a perfect batter. I love that color. I love that texture. And this is something that will hold. Now, what I always do, and I'll recommend to you, when you've got the mixer out and you're making one of these, think about this. Why make only one? Why not do one for the freezer as well, or two? When you're in the throes of baking, it's just as easy. Now, of course, with the custard, that's not something that can be frozen, and not to get the right texture. But with these, absolutely. So let's get a quick view. So I want to show you, I'm going to put in about 2/3 or almost 3/4 of these berries. Now, these are fresh berries. So what I want to do is I want to gently fold them in. So what I'll do is just literally tip them over one another. Do you see that? That way I'm not going to crush them. I want the pockets of berries, but I want the color of the batter to not be stained red. Tipping that over. Beautiful. And turn again. And now with that complete, I'm going to fill my ceramic baking dish. Look at that. Oh, it's just perfect. You want to make sure to get every last little bit of this out. The nice thing about this ceramic dish is you can serve it either in the dish or you can unmold it and you can serve it as a cake on a platter. So whatever you have, if you have round pan, oval, square, as I did earlier, these are all going to work for you great. So just make it even. What I like to do is just, you notice how I've got kind of like little pockets. And then this is the best part. The fresh berries are going to go on top. Oh my gosh. So with the fresh berries on top, this gives me a chance to just arrange these slightly. And then I will, you think, well, you need to pop it in there, but you know what happens? If we have a look at this one, what happens is that batter, it puffs up because of the baking powder. It will puff up and it will literally engulf those beautiful fresh raspberries. So this goes into the oven at 325 degrees and it will bake uncovered for about 50 to 60 minutes. Now, the most important thing to remember when you're baking a cake is to ensure that you get it cooked all the way through. What I recommend is you can either use a steel, a wooden skewer is even better, but find the center of the cake, Pass that through about 55 to 60 minutes into cooking. And if that comes out clean, you know that the cake is completely baked and that it's finished. If it comes and it's got a little bit, if it's a little sticky, one thing you can also do is put it in and then just touch the skewer to the bottom of your lip. You'll know if it's really warm in there. It also tells you, that this is hot or this is still cold. It's a great indicator. But when you can turn that beautiful recipe into this, and it only takes 50 to 60 minutes, this is the perfect complement. If you've got guests over, this can be Christmas Day. But the nice thing is, what you've learned today is you've learned two classics. So we've done a perfect kind of cake recipe or coffee cake recipe, and we've got this beautiful custard recipe. Now, remember, both of these recipes are available at ProduceMadeSimple.ca. We're going to plate these. When these come out of the oven, we're going to post these pictures as well. You get into your kitchen and make some beautiful Christmas baking memories for you and your family. By the way, the kids love doing these. And this is just a reminder to join me next Friday, same time and same place for the Kitchen Life. We'll be making Christmas savory dishes. So I've got a couple great recipes using fresh ingredients. We're using simple techniques and we're using fewer ingredients. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. Thanks from the Collins Farm. I hope you enjoy these recipes. And listen, post these recipes. If you've done these, I would love to see them. I'd also love to share them with my fans. So let me see what you've done. I love your hard work. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.